What if I told you I had a chemical combination that could make drilling the natural nail obsolete? Chemical adhesion is much safer to your natural nail, better for your natural nail, and easier. Let's look at the science behind chemical adhesion for gel products. Arch Rival Nails Prep dehydrates the nails using ethyl acetate. This is a strong chemical. It is in most dehydrators, and you don't want to get it on the skin. You want to use this sparingly. Arch Rival Salt is an acid primer that people should not be afraid to use. All acid primer does is make small etches, microscopic etches in your nail plate. It does way less damage to the nail plate than a drill or a file. Then we have the Arch Rival Nails Optima, which is a UV non-acid primer, which works amazingly with the Arch Rival Nails Salt Acid Primer. And we'll get to that in a moment. Let me show you how to make the most out of chemical adhesion. Chemical adhesion is for anyone who wants to help preserve the natural nail. Anyone who has a really thin nails that are difficult to file because of discomfort for the client. For anyone who has thin nails and peeling nails, this is going to be the answer for you. Start off, we are going to take the nail and we are going to lightly buff the surface of the nail. I'm doing this using a 240 grit file. The reason for doing this is to get off any buildup on the nail. Don't go to town on this. We want to preserve that 10% of that top layer of the nail, which is called the dorsal layer. That is the layer of the nail that is tightly compacted and is the most waterproof. I think that's fine. Let's give that a quick brush off. Don't do this with your drill or too heavy-handed with your file, because we want to preserve as much of that natural nail as we can. At this stage, I like to go in and wipe this off with acetone. It's going to help us remove any further debris, and it's going to start dehydrating that nail. After we wiped it off, we're going to go in with our prep, which is our dehydrator. And you're going to be careful with this. We're not going to touch the skin. We're not going to flood the cuticles. We are just going to keep this right to the nail. And we got to remember that this actually fans out all by itself. So now our nail should be good and dehydrated. We're now going to move on to our salt, which is our acid primer. Acid primer has got really bad rap over the years when it does significantly less damage to your nails than a sanding band, a file, and even does less damage to the nail than the cuticle bits on our drill. I feel when companies came out with non-acid primer, they demonized primer so that they could sell non-acid primer. An interesting fact about acid primers: they can penetrate and address moisture barriers, such as excessive natural oils or moisture in the nail bed. By neutralizing these barriers, they improve the chances of a successful application, especially on clients who struggle with adhesion issues. When you take your brush out of your acid primer, I want you to brush it off not 1, not 2, not 3, but at least 4 times. And this should be enough to do all 10 nails. And if it's not, and you go back for more primer, and you only have a couple of fingers left, I want you to wipe off that brush 7 or 8 times. Now, when we put on acid primer, we don't want to get this on the skin, just like any and every other chemical that we work with when we're working with nails. We're going to put this on the nail without touching the skin. And as long as there is liquid on that nail, you have enough primer on your brush. It spreads out very differently on a fake nail than it does on a real. It's more fluid on a natural nail. Now we have to wait until that dries. A lot of people don't even know that acid primer can conduct heat if you put something on top of it without making sure that it's dry first. just get a fan right out and put it on my client's fingers until it turns a milky white. Now, if you happen to spill any nail product or this salt primer, you get soap and water and you wash it off and wash it off and wash it off over and over again with lots of sudsy soap. You can double check with your SDS sheets from your manufacturers to make sure, but I've never found a nail product that wasn't cleaned up with soap and water. An acid primer puts microscopic etches into the natural nail. It doesn't hurt. It leaves intact most of your dorsal layer that you would be filing off with a file or a sanding band, your e-file, your drill. This preserves the nail. Normally, this is where you'd go into your base coat, but with this Crystal Duo, we go in and we use our UV primer. It is thinner than a base. It is able to fill in those microscopic little etches better than your thicker base coat, making those two previous chemicals a pretty much impervious combination. We're going to stick this in the lamp. So now with our Prep, Optima, and Salt, we have actually made a very impervious layer on this nail. That's going to actually work best with peely nails, bendy nails, thin nails. If you were to put gel polish on top of this, it would no longer be able to be soaked off. It would have to be a fill. But most of us put on some sort of structure gel or rubber base or builder gel before our gel anyway. You can just see how lovely that UV primer was thin enough to get right into all of those grooves. Now the next step would be your base. Your base is thicker than the UV primer. And your base is going to come in and give you that lovely slick surface that you need. For your gel polish. Make sure we're not getting that base on the skin either. And now we are going to cure that. If you're a new nail tech and you're having problems with adhesion, if you're an old nail tech and you have one or two clients that you just can't get nails to stick to, if you're a home DIYer and you're having problem doing appropriate prep, all of this is going to be taken care of with this combo, following this process to get this base for you. It's just going to revolutionize how you do nails. It's going to be so much faster than all that filing. It's going to be gentler to your nail, and this is going to help preserve that dorsal layer we need to make sure nails stay.